Hello, thank you for taking part in the 2019 Homeless Street Count for Multnomah County. The purpose of the street count is to capture a snapshot of individuals and families experiencing homelessness in Multnomah County who are sleeping outside, on the street, in a vehicle, or another place not intended for human habitation on Wednesday, January 23rd. The 2019 street count will be coordinated by the Regional Research Institute at Portland State University, where I'm at. My name is Tiffany Conklin, and I'm the project manager of the Point in Time Homeless Count, and by Multnomah County's Joint Office of Homeless Services, a collaborative entity between Multnomah County and the City of Portland. The results of both counts are combined into a single point in time count report, which will be useful for city and county planning for homeless services and to be eligible for federal funding for homeless services. So we thank you very much for your time and participation in this important endeavor. We're partnering with organizations that come into contact with people who are unsheltered who can help us ensure the count is as complete and accurate as possible. Organizations can participate in the street count in one or both of the following ways. Service-based surveys. Street count surveys can be filled out at organizations for anyone coming in contact for services who's unsheltered on the night of January 23rd, 2019. Or you can participate as an outreach partner. Outreach organizations that conduct outreach to people sleeping outside will fill out a survey form for anyone they encounter who is unsheltered on the night of January 23rd, 2019. Volunteers also are assigned to help an organization administer the street count survey with people who visit their program for services. Only fill out a survey form for people who are unsheltered on Wednesday night, January 23rd, and who have not already taken the street count survey. So it is important to screen and ask if they've already participated. If they've already participated, thank them for their time. If not, complete a survey form for them. It is important to understand the definition of unsheltered, and specifically what unsheltered means for the street count. Unsheltered means sleeping in a public or private place not intended for human habitation and includes streets, doorways, sidewalks, vehicles, parks, woods, open spaces, bridges, overpasses, railroads, abandoned buildings, boats not equipped for residential use, all-night commercial establishments, building roofs, or stairwells. People who are camping or staying on other people's property in garages, sheds, tents, porches, or backyards are considered unsheltered if they are sleeping somewhere without heat or running water and do not have access to these facilities. Unsheltered does not include people who are doubled up or couch surfing, staying in a sheltered or transitional housing, or staying overnight in a jail, hospital, or other institution. They will be counted in other ways. When to survey. The survey can be conducted anytime between January 23rd and January 29th, as long as you only collect information on people who say they will or did sleep outside the night of Wednesday, January 23rd. The vast majority of surveys should be conducted on the evening of Wednesday, January 23rd, throughout Thursday, January 24th, and Friday, January 25th. But people can continue to be surveyed throughout the entire week, so until Tuesday, January 29th, as long as they can accurately report their sleeping situations on the count night, Wednesday, January 23rd. For volunteers, the shifts for volunteers are timed to coincide with program schedules. Please follow these basic steps. Please make every effort to arrive on time for your shift. The site agency contact is expecting you at the specific time that you signed up for. Bring your packet and survey forms with you that you receive during your training or by mail, or that you're picking up from PSU. Consider organizing it in a way that you think will be most efficient for you during surveying. We organized it, but you can rearrange things. Wear your street count volunteer badge so everyone knows who you are and why you're there. When you arrive, ask for the contact person listed on the assignment sheet. Explain that you are there to help conduct the homeless street count, and ask how they would like you to conduct the survey at their particular site. Each site might have their own preferences about where you stand and how you approach people. Contact your designated team lead if any questions or issues come up. We do not have backup volunteers to cover for you, so it is very important that you show up for your shift that you are scheduled. Approaching respondents, a few tips. For volunteers, ask your contact at the agency for suggestions about how to collect the surveys at their site, including things like where you should stand, who you should talk to, and how you should approach people. They'll know best how to do it in a way that is respectful and non-threatening, giving the specific nature of the location and the clientele. The information below gives a more specific set of information about how to engage with people in doing surveys. Getting started. When you approach prospective respondents, try to be positive and informative to generate trust and respect to encourage their participation. Begin by saying something like, "Hello, my name is Tiffany from PSU, and I'm helping to survey people about their housing situations. Could I tell you more about it?" If the individual is willing to hear more, say something like, "The survey is about your housing situation on Wednesday night, January 23rd, and will help the county better understand housing needs in our community. It should take about 2 or 3 minutes. It's voluntary, and the information you provide is completely confidential. You can skip any item you don't feel comfortable answering, and you can stop at any time. We don't record your name, and we'll summarize the answers across everyone who participates in the survey. Can I ask you a few questions?" Confidentiality. Preserving confidentiality of the information collected during the street count, as well as protecting the privacy of street count participants, is essential. Any volunteers or staff who will be conducting the street count survey must agree to maintain the confidentiality of respondents. This means that information gathered while conducting the survey must not be shared in any context outside of the survey. The survey forms must be returned to PSU, and the information collected cannot be reproduced or used for any purpose other than the street count. The street count survey does include a few sensitive questions. Some of the questions in the survey, like domestic violence, questions about disabilities, or substance abuse, can be sensitive. Some sites will have pre-designated areas where you can go for a little more privacy. If you haven't been provided this information already, please find the agency contact and ask them if there's such a space you could use if needed. In general, it's good practice to take a few steps back from the crowded areas and conduct the survey one-on-one with the participants as privately as possible. Be mindful of how loud you're reading the questions. People should not be surveyed in a group, especially if they know each other. If the participants are in a group, let the entire group know that you'd like to survey everyone individually in order to respect everyone's privacy. Standardized data collection. Standardized data is an approach used to obtain information from respondents in a manner that is as neutral and non-directive as possible. A few goals of standardization are that all answers are recorded in the same manner, and any differences in answers are due to differences among respondents, not due to differences in the survey process. It's important to stay neutral. You should remain neutral throughout the data collection process. Your communication should be non-judgmental with respect to the content of the answers. That is, you do not give negative or positive feedback about their responses, so you don't influence them in any way. If respondents ask you for advice on how to answer a question, just encourage them that they should answer the question the best way they can. Sharing personal information. While it's important to set the respondent at ease by building rapport, volunteering personal information about life situations, views, or values during the data collection process can affect the respondent's answers to the survey items. Sharing personal information should really be avoided if at all possible. Providing clarification. Sometimes the respondent will ask for additional information. This is the point at which an interviewer can introduce some bias. Here are a few ways of staying standardized when clarifying. Use the information provided in the individual question instructions in the manual provided to you in your packet. Repeating the entire question should always be your first approach. Repeating the entire question should always be your first approach. Repeating only part of the question could make the respondent think that it's more important than another part of the question, which could bias their response. If you are asked for clarification, say something like, "Let me read the question to you again, just in case it wasn't clear." Handling don't know responses. Don't know responses could actually mean a few things. It could mean either the respondent doesn't understand the question, the respondent needs a little bit of time to think about the question, the respondent does not want to answer the question, or perhaps the respondent actually doesn't know or doesn't have an opinion on the subject. Always probe a don't know response at least once. For example, you could say something like, "There are no right or wrong answers, but this question is very important, so just try to answer it the best you can." If it would be helpful, you can read the questions and options to them again. If they still say they don't know, record that response option if it's available, or write DK in the space next to the response options provided. Handling refusals to survey items. When a respondent refuses to answer a survey item, you need to try to respect that. Either select the response option to indicate that they are not willing to answer that item, for example, declined, or write in RF next to the response options provided. But again, if it's just a soft refusal, try to encourage them to answer the question if you feel comfortable doing so. Handling refusals to survey items. When a respondent refuses to answer a survey item, you need to respect that. Either select the response option to indicate that they're not willing to answer that item, for example, declined, or write RF next to the response options provided. Handling difficult or challenging respondents. It's very likely that you'll encounter respondents who are a bit more challenging than others. When that happens, just use your best judgment. Try to refocus them on the survey at hand, or perhaps they just need to skip a few items and try to complete the rest of the survey. Sometimes you'll get overly talkative respondents. You need to keep this in mind because there may be a lot of other people you need to survey. Sometimes respondents will provide extensive information as they give their answers or digest the survey content with you. When that happens, just politely try to refocus the respondent on the surveys so it can be completed. You can acknowledge that they have a lot of interesting things to say and that you can listen to them once you've completed the survey. Then, without pausing, ask the next survey item. If they want to continue after the survey is completed, let them know that you have a lot more surveys to complete, but can spend a few minutes with them if needed. Disoriented respondents. If a respondent is impaired in some manner, you may need to assess whether they will be able to accurately complete the survey or not. If you deem that the respondent is incapable of doing that, you should politely thank them for their time and just move on. You can tell them that someone else will try to visit them again to complete the survey another time. Either note that you should return to this location or inform the data collectors the next shift to just try again. Inappropriate respondents. If the respondent is being rude, hostile, or just making you feel uncomfortable in some way, you should not conduct the survey. Just thank the respondent for their time and record this as a refusal. So that means you'd complete a refusal form instead of a survey form and just follow the instructions on the refusal form. Unless you believe this person could perhaps be approached again later. If that's possible, either return to the location another time or inform the data collectors on the next shifts just to try again. Handling refusals. When you encounter respondents who are reluctant to do the survey, try to remind them that it's voluntary and that the information will be kept completely confidential, which means their identity will not be included with their answers or in any reports. They can skip any items they're not comfortable answering or stop the survey at any time. Be encouraging but not coercive. Try to explain that we're making sure that everyone gets counted and that the information will be used to plan the resources and services necessary to support people living on the streets. Respond to any questions or concerns they may have to the best of your ability. When in doubt, call your team lead for assistance. You may refer to your manual to get examples of additional refusal conversion text. If the respondent still refuses to take the survey, just thank them for their time and complete a refusal form. Filling out the forms for respondents. Only people who have been through a training and reviewed the training materials should complete the survey form. You should fill out the forms for respondents, but you can read through the items and response options while the respondent is looking at the form as well. If they want to check the responses themselves, you can read each item to them as they follow along and check their selections with your guidance, making sure that they select only one or check all that apply as the survey directs. The survey is pretty detailed, so respondents should not be handed the form to fill out themselves. We really want you to fill it out for them. Try to get a response for every survey item. Make every effort to fill out the entire survey form. However, if a respondent refuses or is unable to answer a specific item, don't insist, just continue the rest of the survey. As noted above, either select the Don't Know or Declined options or make notations for Don't Know with DK or Refused with RF near the response options provided. This applies to all the numbered items in the survey. The goal is to have something noted for every item. The items in the shaded box just after the screening questions are required. If those are refused or cannot be answered for some reason, do not complete the survey, but instead complete a refusal form. For the next part of the training, please look at your packet and get out one of the survey forms and refer to that as we move through this. Side A is for individuals who slept alone or for heads of household. Side A of the street count form should be completed for each individual who slept alone on January 23rd or for the head of household. Side B is for additional household members. Side B of the street count form should be completed for each additional household member for the head of household who completed Side A. There is additional room for up to 2 additional household members on Side B. Asking the questions. Read each survey item as it's written as neutrally as possible. If a particular item makes a respondent uncomfortable or brings up issues they're unwilling to discuss, use the guidance for dealing with don't know responses and item refusals and move on to the next items if needed. Reading the response options. For most survey items, you can simply ask the question, get a response, and then see which option most closely corresponds to the response, rather than reading all of the options out loud. If the response you get doesn't logically fit in one of the options available, you can say something like, I'm not sure which of the options I have on this form best fits your answers, so let me read them to you so you can decide. If you do read the response options, please read them as written, verbatim. If you think it could be one of the 2 or 3 options, you can just read those. You can also let the respondent skim the options available and select the most appropriate one. If the options available just don't fit, use the other option, please specify, and write in the response. If that option is not available on that item, write in their answer and we'll figure it out somehow during data entry. But please try to get them to select an option if possible. Question 14 is an exception to this. As the instructions indicate, please ask about each of the response options provided. Language translation. You'll be given a few copies of the survey and purpose statement translated into Spanish, Vietnamese, Chinese, and Russian. Although we don't expect you to be able to speak all of those languages, of course, you can attempt to have the respondents fill it out themselves if they speak one of those languages. If that doesn't work, you can access immediate interpretation services via a telephone hotline service available for free for street count participants. First, show them the language identification sheet that includes 35 languages in addition to English that can be supported by the telephone translation services. Then follow these steps to connect with an interpreter. These steps are also included in your packets with the language identification sheet. Step 1. Dial 1-866-533-4998. Step 2. Enter the access PIN code 40057. Step 3. When an operator answers the phone, they'll ask you a few questions. What is your name and what language are you requesting? Provide your name and which language you're requesting. What is your department, location, division, or agency? Reply with Joint Office of Homeless Services, or JOHS. What is the patient or client's name? This is not an applicable question, so please have them skip it. What is your cost billing code, and is there additional information you need to provide for billing? In response to this, say street count. Once you have an interpreter on the phone, the easiest way to use this service is by putting the interpreter on speakerphone. Read each survey item and wait for the interpreter to translate it for the respondent. As the interpreter provides you with responses, document them on an English form. Item instructions. Throughout the survey, instructions are included in italics and slightly different font. These either tell you which items to ask, skip, or whether an item is a check all that apply or select only one. For space reasons, not all of the items have the all versus one notations, but any item with a radio button, for instance a circle, for the response options is a select only one item. Any item with boxes for the response option is a check all that apply. Whenever possible, in addition to the skip instructions, gray arrows have been included to help you move to some response options to the next item you should ask. Items with did you, will you, sleep outside January 23rd, use will on only the night of January 23rd, but use the word did for the rest of the survey data collection period through January 29th. These instructions apply to the items that are same on both sides A, i.e. for individual respondents who slept alone or for heads of household, and for side B, i.e. for additional household members. Further instructions for side B are provided in the next section. For the person completing the form, please write your name at the top of each form before you begin the survey. If we have questions about anything you write on the form, this will enable us to collect information from you for clarification. We suggest that when you get a stack of forms, go ahead and at least fill out your name and organization on all of them, if you have an organization. If not, you can just write volunteer. You can then fill in the date on each of the form as you collect them, or ahead of time if you know if you're going to be only doing data collection on one particular day. In the organization site field, please write the name of the site where you're completing this form at. Your sites will be listed on your assignment sheet. Please enter the site name as it appears on your assignment sheet. If the form was completed through outreach, list the sponsoring organization for the outreach effort that you're associated with. In the date field, please write the date the form was completed on. In the top box that contains the two screening items that you will need to ask before proceeding with the survey. Did you or will you sleep outside on Wednesday night, January 23rd? As the instructions indicate, if the answer is no, stop the survey and thank them for their time. If you're surveying someone on the night of the 23rd, where they sleep outside that night, then you do not need to ask this question. You can just select yes. Have you already taken the street count survey this week? As the instructions indicate, if the answer is yes, stop the survey and thank them very much for their time and participation. The shaded box. This contains 4 required items that will be used to eliminate duplicate surveys later. If the respondent refuses to answer any of these 4 items, we cannot use their survey responses for the official count, so do not complete a survey with them. Rather, please fill out a refusal form in an attempt to document general characteristics of the non-responders. This will tell us if any particular group of individuals who were more likely to refuse to do a survey. Instructions for the refusal form are at the end of this manual. The first item is their first letter of their first name and the first 3 letters of their last name. You can assure respondents that their initials will only be used to eliminate duplication across surveys, and it will not be recorded with their answers. In this space, please write very clearly. The next item is age. Write in the respondent's current age in full years. For privacy protection, please do not write in dates of birth. If that's the only thing the respondent will tell you, then figure out how old that makes them and write that in. Use your cell phone's calculator if needed. Please write clearly. The next item is how do you identify your gender? Select one of the 5 options. If selecting transgender, please specify whether they are transgender female to male, F to M, or male to female, M to F. Please try to get this information if you're comfortable and if possible. This is required by the federal government, so we need to try to collect it. If someone identifies as transgender and their current gender as presented is clear, consider the gender to which they are transitioning. If a respondent reports being gender neutral or otherwise not identifying with any particular gender, select does not identify as MF or trans. This option is not used for respondents who refuse to answer this item. If the respondent gets through the 2 screening items and answers the 4 required items, proceed with completing the survey form. If either of those steps, i.e. the screening or required items, are not satisfied, explain that we need that information, but we will protect their privacy. If they still refuse to provide any of that initial information, please just thank them for their time, but do not complete the survey form. Rather, you should switch and later complete a refusal form for them once they're gone or once you have left. Where will you sleep Wednesday night, January 23rd? If the response to this item is any place that does not fit in the definition of unsheltered that we reviewed earlier on page 1, then you should stop the survey. If you're unsure, go ahead and write the response in other unsheltered location and we will figure it out during data entry process. Select park for downtown or neighborhood parks. Select woods open space for parks like Forest Park or Washington Park, as well as for any other kinds of wooded areas or open spaces. Places like Dignity Village or Hazelnut Grove are considered homeless camps and should be specified in other unsheltered locations. Write out the name of the location, not just homeless camp, whenever possible. If the answer to this item is either vehicle or boat, you should skip to question 2. Question 1A. If Q1 not boat or vehicle, ask, did you or will you sleep in a tent at that location on January 23rd? If the response to Q1 is anything other than boat or vehicle, for instance, a tent would not be relevant, ask this follow-up item to determine whether or not they slept in a tent at the location identified in question 1. What part of town did you or will you sleep in on January 23rd? You have a map in your packet of materials that shows the boundaries for each of the response options on this item. If it would help, you can ask the respondent to identify the location on that map and select the appropriate option on the survey for them. If you're surveying the respondent at their sleeping location for the night of January 23rd, then you can fill out the answer to this item yourself rather than asking the respondent to answer it for you. If the respondent doesn't recall their precise location on the night of the 23rd, ask for their best guess and offer the map as a helpful tool. If the respondent moves frequently, make sure that you're getting the location where they slept on the night of Wednesday, January 23rd. Did you or will you sleep alone on January 23rd? This item is used as a screener for question 3A. If the answer is yes, please skip to question 4. If the answer is no, please ask question 3A. Question 3A. Who slept or will sleep with you on January 23rd? This is only asked if question 3 is no. This is a check all that apply item, so please make sure you include everyone they slept with. After they provide a response, you can say something like, anyone else? Until unproductive. If the respondent says, my family, please clarify whether it is their street family or their relative family and check the appropriate option. Question 4. Is this the first time in your life you have experienced homelessness? Our goal with this question is to differentiate between people who have been homeless multiple times, for example, having multiple homeless episodes, versus this being their first experience with homelessness. Definition of homelessness. For question 4 and 5, homeless includes sleeping in a shelter or in an unsheltered situation. It does not include living in transitional housing or doubled up or couch surfing. Question 5. How long have you been homeless this time? This item focuses on the respondent's current episode of homelessness. For example, living on the streets or in a shelter. Write in the number of months or the number of years in the spaces provided. If the respondent has been homeless for a year or more, enter that in the years space. If they say a number that's not a full year, write the decimal number or fraction in the space for years. For example, 1.5 years or 2.25 years. If the respondent has been homeless for less than 1 month, write in less than 1 month in the space for months. If the duration of the current period of homelessness is 12 months or more, skip to question 7. You do not need to ask question 6 or question 6A in this case. For question 4 through question 6A, time, i.e. episode, means a separate, distinct, and sustained stay on the streets or in a homeless shelter. If the person is living on the streets, then spends a few weeks on a friend's couch, then returns to the street, then spends time in jail, then returns to the street, they were homeless for 3 times. For the purpose of the street count, HUD defines chronic homelessness as a person who is either homeless, who lives in a place not meant for human habitation or in a shelter, has been homeless continuously for at least 1 year, or on at least 4 separate occasions in the last 3 years, where the combined length of time homeless across all those occasions is at least 12 months, and has a disability. Question 6. Have you lived on the streets or in a shelter at least 4 separate times, including this time in the past 3 years? This is only asked if question 5 is less than 12 months. The purpose of this question is to determine whether or not the respondent is considered to be chronically homeless according to HUD's definition. If the respondent struggles with this item, you can ask something like, over the past 3 years, how many times have you been on the streets or in a shelter? If their answer is 4 or more, select yes. If their answer is less than 4, select no. If the respondent can't answer the question, just select don't know. If their answer is no or don't know, you should skip to question 7 after this. If their answer is yes, please ask question 6A. Question 6A. In the past 3 years, what was the total time you have been living on the streets or in a shelter at least 12 months? This is only asked if question 6 is yes. This question is also needed to determine chronic homelessness, according to HUD's definition. If the respondent struggles with this item, you can ask, over the past 3 years, how much time have you been on the streets or in a shelter? If their answer is 12 months or more, select yes to this question. If their answer is less than 12 months, select no. If the respondent can't answer the question, just select don't know. Question 7. How do you identify your race, ethnicity? This is a select all that apply item, so select the relevant options. If the respondent provides an answer, then ask anything else until unproductive. You should select all that apply. Since Hispanic or Latino is considered an ethnicity, encourage respondents who select that to also select one or more of the additional race options. Encourage respondents to select at least one race or ethnicity, but if they do not provide an answer, just select don't know/refused next to the response options. Do not try to guess the respondent's race or ethnicity based on your visual observations. If the respondent provides a race or ethnicity not included in the response options or provides further descriptions, use the additional detail space and write in what the respondent says. For example, if the respondent says they are Vietnamese, you can select Asian and write Vietnamese in the additional detail space. Question 8. Are you attending school? Check yes if the respondent is currently attending school on a regular basis. The respondent can be attending any form of school. Question 9. Are you employed? Check yes if the respondent is currently employed. Employment can be permanent, temporary, full-time, part-time, or even seasonal. Question 10. Ask if 18 years of age or older. Have you served in the U.S. Armed Forces, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, or have been called into active duty by the National Guard or as a reservist? Please ask all individuals over the age of 18 if they have served in the U.S. Armed Forces. Please remember to read the questions verbatim, which means exactly as they are worded on the survey. The service can be at any time in the past. If they answer yes to this question after you've completed the survey, please hand them one of the veteran information cards provided to you in your packets and encourage them to reach out to the entities listed on that card. You should have 2 or 3 veteran information cards in your packet for distributing out to people. Emphasize that discharge status or length of time served may not disqualify them from services. Regardless of their experience in the U.S. Armed Forces, they should still reach out if they would like any assistance with resources. Examples of available resources include housing, rent assistance, emergency shelter, eviction prevention, utility assistance, assistance with benefits, discharge status, medical and mental health support, legal assistance, food, and basic needs. If anyone expresses that they aren't eligible for services from the VA or do not want to engage with the VA, please emphasize that there are other options available through a variety of service providers. They should still call the Veteran Service Hotline or 211 to discuss their options. Please make no assumptions about someone's veteran status. Veteran status is self-identified during the account, and eligibility for services will be assessed if they choose to connect with any of the agencies listed on the card. Female and LGBTQ+ veterans, among others, often do not self-identify as veterans. Question 11. How long have you been in Multnomah County? If the respondent does not have a precise answer, encourage them to make their best guess. If the respondent says that they've been here all their life, select NA, I'm from here originally, and skip to question 13. Question 12. Were you homeless when you came to Multnomah County? As with question 4 and question 5, homeless includes sleeping in a shelter or in an unsheltered situation. It does not include living in transitional housing or doubled up or couch surfing. Question 12A. What brought you here? This item is check all that apply. If the respondent provides an answer, you can ask anything else until unproductive. Question 12B. Where did you come from? This is a select only one item. This is focused on the location the respondent was living right before they moved to Multnomah County. If the respondent came from somewhere else in the state of Washington other than Clark County, select Washington or California. Question 13. Ask this question of everyone 18 years of age or older. Have you experienced domestic violence, either physical, emotional, or verbal domestic violence, in current or past relationships? Ask this item of any adult 18 years of age or older. Do not ask this of anyone under the age of 18 years old. Domestic violence, or DV, is defined as a pattern of abusive behavior in any intimate relationship that is used by one partner to gain or maintain power and control over another partner. DV can also be physical, emotional, or verbal, which include sexual, economic, and psychological actions or threats of action that influence another person. This is, of course, a sensitive issue. If you haven't done so already, please try to step back from crowded situations and continue the survey one-on-one with the participant in a more private setting, if at all possible. Use active, compassionate listening to establish a caring yet neutral experience for the respondent. Listen without judgment or without intervention. If this is a situation that you need to address, let them know that after a couple more questions, the survey will be complete and you will talk to them about available resources at that time. It's best to keep the data collection and any necessary intervention as separate as possible, so try to complete the survey first before continuing the conversation. However, if the situation becomes more of a crisis, just forget about finishing the survey at that point and address the person's needs as you need to. If the respondent answers yes to this question, please ask question 13A. If the respondent answers no, skip to question 14. If the respondent is not comfortable answering this item, just select declined and skip to question 14. Question 13A. Are you currently fleeing from domestic violence? The purpose of this item is to determine whether or not the respondent is currently fleeing from or escaping domestic violence. If the respondent is not comfortable answering this item, just select declined and move on to question 14. Question 14. Are you experiencing any of the following? Mental illness, drug use problem, alcohol use problem, physical disability, mobile impairment, chronic health condition, developmental disability, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, HIV/AIDS. This is a select all that apply item. This item can be uncomfortable for respondents, especially in situations where others may be able to overhear the survey. You may want to show the respondent the list and just have them indicate yes or no to each response option that you point to. If they need the response options read aloud to them, you can ask them if they'd like to move to a more private spot, or you can read them and point to each option. You can have the respondent check the boxes that are applicable to them on their own in this situation, but then take the survey back and continue reading it aloud as you were before. The goal of this item is to understand if they're experiencing any conditions that may affect their ability to work or live independently. Please see the instruction manual provided to you in your packet, specifically pages 16 and 17, for definitions of each of these conditions. Ideally, we'd like to gather information on the respondent's specific conditions, but if it's not possible to do that, please try to at least determine if the respondent is experiencing any of the conditions listed here. If they select at least some of them, but they don't want to specify which ones, just select yes, some disabling condition. If the respondent is not experiencing any of the conditions and was willing to answer the question, select none, not applicable. If the respondent is not comfortable answering this item, select decline to answer and thank them for their time, because that is the end of the survey. Side B was developed to allow you to record the responses for multiple members of the same household all on one form, so please flip over the form and refer to this side. If the individual completing side A indicates in question 3 that they slept with other people on the night of January 23rd, you should ask the questions of those other people by using side B of the same form. Side B provides room for up to 2 additional household members. The questions are listed vertically in the left column for the responses for household member 1, are presented vertically in the middle column, and the responses for household member 2 are presented vertically in the right-hand column. If a household has more than 3 members, complete side B of another paper form, making sure that you fill out just the shaded box at the top of side A with the information for the head of household, leaving the rest of side A blank. On the second form, if there's a 3rd additional household member, cross out household member 1 in the column heading and write in number 3. If there's a 4th additional household member, cross out number 2 in the column heading and write in number 4. The forms can be clipped together or stapled together if you have supplies to do so. Otherwise, just make sure they're right next to each other when you put your forms back in your folder. Side B does not include the 2 screening items because they're likely to be the same as for the head of household. Question 1, the type of location they were in, and question 2, the part of town they were in on the night of January 23rd, from side A, are not asked of the additional household members because they would be the same as they were for the head of household. Question 3 from side A is not included on side B because it's already known based on the answer from the head of household. As with side A, the 4 required items are listed in the shaded area at the top of the form. If the respondent provides responses to the 4 required items, you can proceed with completing the survey. However, if the respondent refuses to answer them, we cannot use their survey responses for the official count, so do not complete a survey with them. Rather, please fill out a refusal form in an attempt to document the general characteristics of the non-responders. Please see instructions for the refusal form at the end of the manual included in your packet. The responses provided by the head of household on side A are still valid and should still be submitted. We'll still be including the head of household in the street count. Question 1. What is your relationship to the person who completed side A of this form? Question 1. What is your relationship to the person who completed side A of this form? Spouse, partner, child, children, grandchild under 18 years old, other relative, like a parent, sibling, adult children, aunt, uncle, or grandparent, non-relative, for instance, a friend or street family. This is similar to question 3A on side A. However, it asks about the household member's relationship to the head of household. This is a select only one item. Question 2. Is this the first time in your life you've experienced homelessness? This is the same as question 4 on side A. Question 3. How long have you been homeless this time? Please note this is the same as question 4 on side A. Question 4. Ask if question 3 is less than 12 months. Have you lived on the streets or in a shelter at least 4 separate times, including this time in the past 3 years? Please note that this is the same question as question 6 on side A. Question 4A. Ask this if question 4 equals yes. In the past 3 years, was the total time you have been living on the streets or in a shelter at least 12 months? Please note this is the same question as question 6A on side A. Question 5. How do you identify your race or ethnicity? Please note this is the same question as question 7 on side A. Are you attending school? Question 6. Please note this is the same question as question 8 on side A. You should also stop here for any children who are anywhere from the ages of 0 to 17 years old. Due to the nature of the remaining items on this form, questions 7 through 12, we are not asking children ages 0 to 17 years old these questions. After completing question 6 with the children, please stop the survey and thank them very much for their time and cooperation. If they're over 17 years old, please ask question 7, are you employed? Please note this is the same question as question 9 on side A. Question 8, have you served in the U.S. Armed Forces or been called into active duty by the National Guard or as a reservist? Please note this is the same question as question 10 on side A, and the Armed Forces have been abbreviated to save some space. If you need to read the examples aloud, please just flip over to the other side and reference question 10. Question 9. How long have you been in Multnomah County? Please note that this is the same question as question 11 on side A. Question 10. Were you homeless when you came to Multnomah County? Please note this is the same question as question 12 on side A. Question 10A. What brought you here? This is the same question as question 12A on side A. Question 10B. Where did you come from? Please note this is the same as question 12A on side A. Question 11. Have you experienced domestic violence in current or past relationships? Please note that this is the same as question 13 on side A. Question 11A. Are you currently fleeing from domestic violence? Please note this is the same as question 13A on side A. Question 12. Are you experiencing any of the following? Please note this is the same as question 14 on side A. For space reasons, again here, options have been abbreviated relative to what's printed on side A. When in doubt what the abbreviation response options stand for, please just flip the form over and read them from side A. Next, we're going to review the refusal form, so please get the refusal form out of your packet and refer to that as we move forward. The refusal form was developed to document general characteristics of the non-responders. This will tell us if there was any particular group of individuals who were more likely to refuse to do the survey. Complete this form if the potential respondent slept outside on the night of Wednesday, January 23rd. You should be fairly certain of this. Refuses to complete the survey, or cannot or will not provide the identifying information in the shaded box of the street count survey. At the bottom of the refusal form, please see the form field, Person Completing Form. Here, please write your name at the bottom of each form. If we have questions about anything you write on the form, this will enable us to contact you for clarification. Organization/site. Please write the name of the site where the form was completed, or if the form was completed through outreach efforts, list the sponsoring organization for the outreach effort. Date. Please write the date the form was completed. Question 1. Was this person homeless on January 23rd? If you select yes or most likely, please complete the rest of this refusal form. If you select no, do not complete the refusal form. Question 2. Reason for refusing to complete the street count survey. Please indicate the reasons the prospective respondent may have refused to complete the street count survey. Although most people will probably only have one reason, this is a select all that apply item in case people mention more than one reason when refusing. Please use the other option if none of the other options are relevant and provide a clear description about why the person's refusing. This item is very important because it will help us better understand how to adjust the approach for the next street count to increase the response rate. Question 3. Type of location. If the response to this item is any place that does not fit in the definition of unsheltered on page 2 of your manual, then you should not complete the refusal form because they would not have fit the criteria for the street count anyway. If you're unsure, go ahead and write the response in the field Other Unsheltered Location, and we will figure it out during the data entry process. Select Park for downtown or neighborhood parks. Select Woods Open Space for parks like Forest Park or Washington Park, as well as for other kinds of wooded areas and open spaces. Places like Dignity Village or Hazelnut Grove are considered homeless camps and should be specified in the Other Unsheltered Location, but write out the name of the location, not just homeless camp whenever possible. So write things in there like Dignity Village. Even if you are not sure that this was their sleeping location for the night of Wednesday, January 23rd, complete question 3 for the current location of the potential respondent. Question 3A, sleeping in a tent. If the response to question 3 is anything other than boat or vehicle, i.e. a tent would not be relevant, indicate whether or not they slept in a tent at the location identified in question 3A. Question 4, area of Multnomah County. Refer to the boundary map provided to you in your packet of materials to select the most accurate area where you're collecting this data. Even if you're not sure that this was their sleeping location for the night of the 23rd, complete question 4 for the current location of the potential respondent. Question 4A. Did the individual sleep in the location selected in question 3 and the area selected in question 4 on January 23rd? Please fill out question A so we know how likely the location and area can be documented for this non-responder for the night of the 23rd. Question 5, gender. Question 6, age. And question 7, race and ethnicity. For each of these items, provide an accurate estimate just based on your observations. If you cannot provide an accurate estimate for any of the items, select Unable to Determine. Additional comments. Use this space to let us know anything about the situation that might help us in using this and entering the data. If you have questions about whether or not you should fill out this form, explain that in this section. Returning the forms. Please return all forms. This includes all of your street count survey forms and all of your refusal forms, no later than February 3rd, using one of the following methods. You can mail it to us. Put the forms in the enclosed business reply postage paid envelope and just drop it in the mailbox. You could drop it off to us. Put the forms in the enclosed business reply envelope and drop them off at the 9th floor receptionist desk at the Portland State University's Regional Research Institute, located in the Neuberger Center building at 1600 Southwest 4th Avenue, Portland, Oregon 97201. This is located at the corner of Southwest 4th and Market, again on the 9th floor. You can email or fax it to us. If you have a small number of forms, you can scan them and email them to pointintime@pdx.edu or fax them to PSU. Attention, myself, Tiffany Conklin, at 503-725-4180. For more information, you should always start with your team lead. Their contact information will be listed in your assignment sheet in your packet. Otherwise, we have provided in the manual a list of alternative contacts at Portland State University or the Joint Office of Homeless Services that you may reach out to if you have questions. That completes this training. Thank you so much for your time and patience moving through this PowerPoint. If you have any questions, please email us at pointintime@pdx.edu and we will reply as soon as possible. Thank you again for your dedication in helping us with this year's street count. It's a very important endeavor and you will be making a difference.